Okay, we'll get started. I am going to use a bolster today. If you don't have a bolster, a big pillow will be just as good. If you can wrap it up to make it more cylindrical, that will be great. But just anything to give you a little bit of support. This could also be done without anything at all, but the bolster just makes everything a little bit more comfortable. So we're going to start reclined down over it in a Supta Baddha Konasana variation. So if you are using your bolster or your pillow, it comes up toward your lower back. Otherwise, you can recline straight down on the mat. We'll bring the soles of the feet down, knees up, and then when you're ready, actually start to lower yourself down, either all the way to the mat or to your pillow or bolster. If you are quite niggly through the lower back, you do want just a little bit of space between your lower back and the end of the bolster, so the opening comes more up into the thoracic and there's less of a angle on the lower back. If you're quite happy, you can wiggle your lower back a little bit closer to feel a broader opening across the chest. Lots of options now that we're here. We can bring the knees together, or we can bring the soles of the feet together and take the knees wide. Whatever feels best for you this morning. This can be a little strong, getting straight into. That's a big inner thigh opener, so if you want to support it, do so. And then once you're comfortable, taking the arms out wide, palms face up, so the shoulders start to melt back and down toward the mat beneath your bolster or whatever is supporting you. Back of the head rests heavy. And as we settle into this shape, or whatever variation you're taking, notice the openness of the front body. And often, if we are feeling run down or busy or like we need to protect ourselves from something, this is the area of the body that we close off. We start to curl in on ourselves. So this opening can feel quite vulnerable. So if you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable, be aware of that. And if you need to adjust the shape, please do so. Otherwise, take your time to settle into this openness, into this point of vulnerability. We're in a safe space. And we start to let go of those holds that we have, those protections that we have against the world around us, so that we can open and look inward, so that we can be soft and truthful with ourselves. So taking the time to observe if there's any points of the body that are feeling particularly uncomfortable, and working to soften into those spaces. If you need to move, move. Otherwise, can you create comfort? Can you create softness simply with your breath? As we start to slow it down, lengthen it out. Notice how your breath sounds this morning. How it feels in your body. The temperature of it, the texture of it. Take the time to really explore. Get to know the way you're breathing here and now. And as you watch the breath enter and leave the body, allow it to do so calmly. We're not forcing anything. I'm going to take 5 more big long breaths here, settling into the practice. And If you do have an intention that you want to set around your movement this morning, this is a great opportunity to do so. Keeping the breath long and steady. We're going to start to lift the hands away from the mat. Bringing the palms together at the center of the chest. Feeling that point of connection, each fingertip, each finger, each point of your palm. And then interlacing the fingers, rotating the palms to face upward. We're going to start to press the ceiling up away from us. Notice how the shoulders move on your bolster or your mat. So arms as straight as possible. Back of the head is still relaxed down. From here, use an inhale. Start to send the arms up overhead. If the interlace of the fingers is quite strong here, you might want to release it and just reach the arms up, pressing the top of the mat away from you. Take a few breaths. Notice how the shape of the shoulders changes. Notice the way the armpits are facing. And then keeping the arms up overhead, release the interlace of the fingers as you still have them, and as much as possible, relax the arms downward toward the mat. This is quite strong on the shoulders. So if you want to take a hold of your bolster, instead of taking the hands all the way down, do so. We can rest the hands on the bolster or reaching downward, back of the hands toward the mat. Let's take a couple of breaths here. Notice how the shape of the chest has shifted. Maybe we have more space to breathe deeper. Opening into our Monday. Let's take one more deep breath in wherever you are. And full exhale. Picking the hands up off the mat or the bolster. Inhale, reach your hands right up toward the ceiling. And then exhale, circle your hands downward toward the mat, close to your hips. Hands brush the outside edges of the thighs. You can use your hands to encourage your knees back together if they were out wide. If your knees are together, separate them and separate the feet. So the feet come to about mat distance apart. Knees point up to start with, big breath in. And then as you exhale, allow the knees to fall toward the left, feeling an openness down the right side of the body, into the hip, down the hip flexor. We're moving through this. Inhale, knees up to center. Exhale, melt the knees out to the right. Feel the lengthening out of your left side. Let's do two more either side. Inhaling through center, long fluid movements. Exhaling to the left. Inhaling to center. Exhaling to the right. Inhale, center. Exhale to the left. If your breath is guiding your movement or your movement is guiding your breath, it's all one and the same. Inhale, center. Exhale to the right. Inhale, center, plant feet down. Turn your palms to face down by your sides. Draw chin toward chest. If you need to roll off the bolster to one side and then come up to seated, please do so. Otherwise, we're going to start to curl up, activating the front of the body to lift into a seated position. As you come up, bring your hip bones down on the mat, inhale. And then aim belly in between thighs as you exhale. Take a lean forward, arms in between the legs as well. Drop the head heavy, back of the neck is long. So draw toward chest. Big radical of the front. Next, inhale, sit tall, reach the arms all the way up. Then as you exhale, circle your hands down beside you, and we're going to come up to a supported malasana. So you might want to walk your feet in a little closer, pick yourself up onto your bolster or your pillow. There is the option to not have anything underneath you as well. I'm going to turn to face you. So walking the feet in toward the hips. Out, hip distance, maybe a little wider, angle outward. Angle forward. So I need to turn my toes out. That's just where my hips are shaped, but I'm trying to start to work them forward. So wherever you are on that spectrum is perfect, but just know where the intention sits. Press down through the soles of the feet. Start to work your knees, your elbows to the insides of your knees. So even though you're so that's a movement different. What helps us maintain. Can press. Bring the hands together at the heart center. Well, if I can also find an opening across the chest. Which is the head, big breath in. What is one more you had? You don't crunching to the left. Coming to center. Left hand is going to come toward the left knee. And we're going to press left knee and the right fingertips as far away from each other as we can. So imagine the chest rotating upward toward the ceiling. Maybe the gaze lifts for 3, 2, 1. Send your gaze down your chest. Swap hands. As you do that, start to rotate the chest upward. Maybe lift the gaze upward. So again, working parts of the body against each other to find the deeper stretch. For 3, 2, 1, and then allow the gaze, the chest to turn downward. Both fingers coming down to the, and we're working between release the action front and your hips. Some way lift the hips up. If your toes are turning outward like mine are, rotate them to turn forward. If the feet are a little wider than hip distance, that's okay. Soften the knees, fold torso over legs until the belly rests on the thighs. So the hinge at the hips is as deep as possible. The legs do not need to be straight. From here, start to nod the head out, like you're really agreeing with something. Let the head be heavy through this nod, so we're releasing any tension through the neck. Notice what happens to your breath here as we open across the backside of the body. All right, releasing from that nodding action. Look down towards your hands. Knees are still generously bent as much as they need to be. We're going to have to spread the fingers out. I will come side on. Spread the fingers out on the mat. Grip down into the fingertips, finding your little gecko hands, and then walk those feet back and move into a downward facing dog. So the down dog doesn't need to be super open, super pointy. Remember, we're still warming up, and you might be noticing this morning with the colder weather just how different your practice feels. So it takes us longer to open when the temperature is cooler. Allow those changes to happen. Press down and forward with your hands. Release the head as heavy as you can, and if you still have the bolster underneath you like I do, you might be aiming the forehead down toward the bolster. If you're not using one, just releasing the head as much as possible downward toward the mat, lifting and spreading through the sit bones, allowing the knees to stay soft. And notice if you have started to tense anywhere in the body here. Can you soften? What points need to stay active? What points can we relax a little bit more? So you want to stay active through the grip of your hands, through the inward rotation of the armpits, the wrapping in. This keeps us upright here. You want to stay active through the draw upward of the sit bones and the press back of the thighs. Again, this keeps us upward here. A few more breaths. Let's go for one more deep inhale together. Full exhale. Then inhale, lift your head, look toward your hands, roll forward slightly. As you exhale, we're bringing the knees down to the mat. If you are working with your bolster like me, knees go to either side of the bolster. We untuck the toes and we sit back. You want to make sure that the bolster is going to land underneath the sit bone. So we're coming into a supported Virasana. You can just sit with the legs together in your Virasana. Otherwise, you can pop anything, a blanket, a block underneath the sit bones to make this not quite so strong on the knees. So starting to really press the tops of the feet downward into the mat wherever you are. All right, tops of the feet down. Inner thighs squeeze in toward your bolster or squeeze in toward each other. We're going to inhale, reach the arms all the way up. As you exhale, circle your hands down and behind you, interlace the fingers. Inhale, pull the hands away from the body. Feel the shoulder blades start to squeeze together as you do this. And then as you exhale, we're going to roll chin to chest, hands toward the ceiling. It's not going to be a very big movement. Again, inhale, squeeze the shoulder blades together, draw the hands back and downward. And then exhale, chin to chest, hands upward a little. One more time, inhale. Exhale. Inhale, coming back down, reaching the hands back and down. Use the exhale, release the interlace of the fingers. Press downward into the knees, and we're going to lift up and step the right foot forward. Step the right foot nice and wide, lean forward and bring your hands down underneath your shoulders. So your right foot is to the outside of the right hand. The back toes stay untucked and we creep forward toward our lizard lunge. Now if you're using your bolster, it can be really nice support here. So you might want to pull it forward and start to lower your elbows toward it, or just simply use it as a little bit of extra support of the hands. Anything else you might have just to lift the floor up toward you to make this a little bit more accessible is great. So remembering we don't want to push into any deep stretches when the body is cooler. So really taking your time here and feeling free to move through the shapes. There's nothing stagnant about this practice. We don't need to go into something and hold as still as possible. Instead, feel free to explore. You might want to shift slightly left to right. Notice how that feels. You might draw out of the shape and then into the shape to explore the places where you feel the stretch or the places that feel good to move. This might also help you explore where your edge is. You want to know where it is. You don't want to be working there constantly, but it's like flirting with that edge point. Moving toward it and then drawing back slightly. Moving toward it and then drawing back slightly, and you feel the body start to open, the edge point moves. So as we've been here for a little while, you might be able to start to lower down a little deeper. We've got 3 more breaths. If you feel your right knee, so this front leg has started to shift outward to the right, try draw the knee in slightly toward the right shoulder. So we're not turning the right toes out, they're still pointing forward. There's an inward movement there as you stretch the front side of the left leg. All right, if you have lowered down onto your elbows, start to come on up. And I'm just going to shift this bolster out of the way so that you can see my foot. So my right foot is angled forward now. We're going to shift this a little bit, so changing the stretch just ever so slightly by angling the right toes outward toward the top right corner of the mat. From here, right hand is going to go toward the right knee. Your left hand might still be supported by the bolster. We start to draw the right knee outward. So now we're focusing on the right inner thigh that starts to open. Going deeper into the hips, you might roll to the outside edge of the foot, so the sole of the foot comes up off the mat. So you might not be working with the hips quite as low as you were when everything was forward. This changes the shape a little bit. You might want to pull out and then relax back downward toward the shape. So right knee, right toes point out. Perhaps you're on the outside edge of the right foot. You want to make sure that you're pressing out of this left shoulder. Instead of sinking downward toward the mat in this shape, we're going to turn this into a bit of a twist, a bit of an opening. So start to draw the right shoulder back as if you're lifting the chest upward toward the ceiling. And we'll take a few nice big breaths here. Good morning, hips. Keep pressing out of your left palm. And notice if you've gone too far and your breath has started to catch. If you're pushing, if you're tensing, pull back out of the shape a little bit. All right, starting to use the right hand to draw the right knee back inward, the sole of the foot grounds, and then we're going to turn the right toes to point forward again. Right hand comes back down to the inside of the foot, so hands are underneath the shoulders. Deep breath in. Then as you exhale, we're going to start to pull the hips back, press down and forward through the right heel. Draw belly button to lower back. Lengthen out that right leg. It does not need to be straight. Let's move through this. Inhale. Keep your right knee drawing inward toward your right shoulder. Chest forward. Exhale, draw back. 3 more times. Inhale, forward. Exhale, draw back. Inhale. Exhale. One more, inhale. And exhale. Keep the right leg as long as you can. Inhale, lift the chest. Maybe coming all the way up into the fingertips. You still might be working with your bolster here. We're going to switch this around into a supported skandasana. So we're really working into the hips today. The bolster is nice if you want to sit back on it. You have the option not to use anything to sit on and just hover your hips in space. So aiming the bolster around to where your hips will need to land, toward the outside of your right hip. We're going to tuck the left toes. Keep pressing down and forward through that right heel. Draw your left hip back toward your left heel. Pick the left knee up and swivel, and we're landing the hips on that bolster. So getting there however works. Supported skandasana. Sitting back. If you can, plant the left foot down. If the left heel needs to stay a little lifted here, that's absolutely fine. Keep it lifted, but the intention is a downward pressure. We want to be taking weight back into the heel, into the hips, rather than forward into the toes and the shoulders. So working with that little seesaw, we're drawing weight backward now, and the bolster or the pillow, whatever you're using underneath the sit bones, obviously helps that, because it's comfortable. Right? If you're working without the bolster, it's a lot stronger on the legs, a lot stronger on the hips. Please feel free to, if that's what you're wanting this morning, if you're seeking that little extra stretch. But for me, I'm going to stay seated today. So working the legs wide, this is incorporating that malasana movement that we did at the beginning with the inner thigh and hamstring stretch. So lots going on here. All right, working the legs wide, pressing the left elbow outward in toward the left knee. So the left knee is moving even wider. The knee is still trying to press in toward the shoulder. You might want to stay here. Press down through the right heel, down into the mat, so that right leg is active. Otherwise, left hand is going to come down. It can just be fingertips. Reach the left hand as far away from you as you can. And then we're going to create as much space between our two hands, reaching the right arm outward to the right, rotating the chest upward toward the ceiling. So pressing away from that left knee to open across the chest. The more we draw that right arm back, we also get a nice opening through the right shoulder. Gaze is up if that is comfortable, or anywhere on the spectrum downward toward your left hand. Let's take a few big breaths here. Can you use your breath to expand your chest even more? Beautiful. Use your next exhale. Circle the right hand back downward toward the mat if it was lifted. And we're going to come up into a wide-legged forward fold. So the legs are already wide. We need to shift the weight out of the hips into the shoulders. Finding that seesaw again, drawing the weight forward. Use your hands, lift the hips up, and then turn the toes inward. So the toes are pointing toward the long end of your mat. The outside edges of the feet are roughly parallel to the short ends of your mat, so there is a slight pigeon toe, a slight turning in of the toes. You can go hands straight down to the mat. You might want to pull your bolster forward and bring your hands onto your bolster or your pillow or your blocks, whatever brings the floor up a little bit closer. So using the options that work for you. Hands are roughly underneath shoulders. We don't need too much weight in them. We're going to wave the spine. So inhale, come up toward a half lift, moving fluidly like a wave. Exhale, start to melt downward toward the mat. 4 more. Inhale, wave it up. And exhale, wave it down. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Keep drawing the inner thighs in so we're not just letting the feet splay out. Exhale. 1 more deep breath in. Long breath out. This time allowing yourself to hang out at the bottom. Maybe giving the head a little bit of a nod, ensuring that the jaw is relaxed, the back of the neck is lengthened. Lifting and spreading through the sit bones, engaging through the inner thighs and the pelvic floor. Grounding through the outside edge of both of your feet. And then we're going to use the next breath in to start to come back up, hands underneath shoulders. And we're going to switch it around toward the right foot and step back into our downward facing dog. So walking your hands back toward the front of the mat, step it back, down dog. So just as we did before, you might want to work with the bolster underneath you. This time I'm going to demonstrate with it out of the way so you can see your options here. Notice if your down dog shape has changed at all. Keep the activity through the hands, through the backs of the thighs. Keep softness through the head, through the heels. Let's go for one more deep breath in. And full breath out. Use your inhale to look forward toward your hands, roll forward. Use your exhale, bring the knees down. So you might bring the knees down either side of the bolster, untuck the toes, draw the knees inward toward the bolster, sit hips back toward heels. Or we can come straight down, legs together, tops of the feet on the mat, inner thighs is still squeezing inward. So using the options that feel best for you, lengthening up through the crown of the head, grounding down through the sit bones. Let's inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, circle the hands back behind you, interlacing the fingers here. Inhale, squeezing the shoulder blades toward each other, hands pull back, and we're going to send them downward. Lift the chest up. And then exhale, look forward, chin to chest slightly, pull your hands back and up and start to bow the whole body forward. So we're hinging at the hips, reaching hands towards ceiling. Twice more, inhale, coming on up, lifting through the chest. We're exaggerating that previous movement a little bit more. Exhale, arc the hands upward toward the ceiling. Keep squeezing the shoulder blades together. One more time, inhale. Exhale. Inhale, coming on up. Exhale, releasing the interlace of the fingers till the shoulders melt. Inhale, pick the hips up. And then use the exhale. We're going to step the left foot forward. Bring both hands down to the inside of the left foot. Sitting up on it, and bring your hands to your bolster. I'm just going to move this a little bit. Or you can have your hands straight down on the mat. So with this first one, we're working with the toes forward, the left knee squeezing in toward the left shoulder. So we're keeping the drawing in. As we send the chest forward, start to lengthen out through the right hip flexor. Keep the top of the right foot down on the mat. And just like we did on the other side, we're not working towards stillness here. This doesn't need to be stagnant. Feel free to explore the shape. Keeping as much contact between your left knee and the outer edge of your left arm as you can. If you want to rock side to side, exploring that right hip, maybe it feels different to the other side, do so. And if you want to ease out of the shape, then melt into the shape, using your breath to explore where that edge point is. Do so. And if you're working with quite a bit of weight in the hands, so there's really quite a forward movement, just make sure that you're not sinking and collapsing down into the shoulders. So if you're pressing into your hands, you want to keep pressing out of the shoulders as well, drawing the chest forward. So there's space across the shoulders, across the neck. The jaw can stay relaxed. We'll take 3 more breaths here. All right, on your next inhale, lift the hips slightly. So you don't want to be as deep into the shape as you can be. You want to pull out slightly as we change the angle of the front foot. Turning the left toes outward toward the top left corner of the mat. So the left knee starts to truck away from the shoulder rather than pulling in toward it. You might find that now's the time you can sink down and forward through the hips again, and it will feel different through the hips. Pressing down into the right hand, I'll move this out of the way. Right hand is either on the mat or on your bolster or anything that gives you a little bit of height. We take left hand toward left knee and start to twist open. So pressing the left knee away, you might roll to the outer edge of your left foot. Press out of your right hand, out of your right shoulder. Start to draw your chest upward toward the ceiling. So even though we're sinking downward through the hips, we're lifting upward through the rest of the torso. Chest towards ceiling, left shoulder back and up. Watch any tendency to collapse into that right shoulder and hang out here. Instead, we're lifting away from the mat and opening up for a few breaths. One more deep breath. Complete exhale. Then inhale, start to lift the hips, draw the left knee back in, turn the left toes back forward, bring the left hand down to the inside of the left foot. Hands are back underneath shoulders, left knee is back hugging in toward the outer edge of the left arm. Your hands can be up on a bolster or anything that gives them a little bit of height. Inhale. And then use the exhale, pull both hips back, start to lengthen through your left leg, press into your left heel, belly button to lower back. Inhale, take the shape forward, reach forward with your chest. Exhale, draw the shape back. 3 more times. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Keep the hips pulled back. Walk your hands back so that they're underneath shoulders. Inhale, lift the chest. So we're really lengthening out through the back of the left leg now. We're going to move once again into our Skandasana. This time left leg long, right leg bent. So you might want to bring the bolster in. Pop it to the outer edge of the left hip. Tuck the right toes under. Draw the hips back. And then lift the right knee and swivel. So the legs are nice and wide, and we're here. I am going to turn myself around so I don't have my bum to you the whole time. Left leg long, right toes are turning outward. Notice if your weight is right forward and you're hanging out here, and draw it back, relax the hips downward. Even if they're not down on the mat, that's totally fine. If you're working with that stronger variation of hovering the hips, you can feel the stretch of the legs away from each other, but also you need to keep that activation of the inner thighs to keep the stability in order to lift the shape up. So we're always working in different directions with different parts of the body in order to feel stretches in certain places. So if this is already super strong and you want to work with your hands down on the mat and just feeling out what's happening through the legs, through the hips, please do so. Otherwise, we start to bring the arms in. Right hand is going to reach toward the mat, past your right toes. So the right outer arm presses outward into the knee presses inward back into the arm. That press inward is what allows us to start to open across the chest. And we're going to reach the left fingertips as far away from the right fingertips as we can, expanding open here. Maybe the gaze is up. Imagine your chest rotating upward toward the ceiling. Take a moment to check in with what's going on with that left leg. We want to be pressing downward actively through the left heel. Keep that left leg active. We'll go for 3 big breaths, whatever variation you're taking. Can you find more openness, more space in the body? Remembering not to be stagnant, but to explore with movement. The next exhale brings the left hand downward toward the mat if it was lifted. And then we're going to come back into our wide-legged forward fold. So pressing downward through the feet, we're shifting the weight out of the hips back forward into the shoulders so that we can lift the hips up, turn the toes in. Outside edges of the feet are parallel to the short ends of your mat. We might want to bring the bolster in, and we're going to take a different variation here that basically mimics a downward facing dog with the upper body. It's basically just a super wide-legged downward facing dog. So rather than working the crown of the head downward toward the mat in between the feet, we're walking the hands forward. I'm going to turn sideways so you can see what this looks like. And try not to let my feet slip on the cork. So I like to have my bolster underneath me here, not necessary. Start to walk your hands forward. Now what we don't want to do is pull the hips forward. So you want to keep your hips in line with your heels. Inner thighs are engaged. Walk the hands as far forward as you can, and then allow the chest and the head to sink downward. So supporting yourself with the bolster is a nice option here. If you feel you have a little bit more space, you might want to scoot that bolster out of the way and sink downward even further, maybe aiming the crown of the head toward the mat, but keep reaching the hands forward. Keep reaching the hands forward and pulling back through the thighs, pulling in through the inner thighs. Feeling all the space that you're creating or you have created in your body. You want to stay active with the hands. Wrap the armpits inward. Allow the head to go a little heavier, the back of the neck to lengthen even more. You've got 3 more breaths here. Okay, pressing into the hands, lifting your head, looking forward. And then start to walk your hands back in, underneath your shoulders. Look toward your left foot. We're making our way back into a downward facing dog toward the front of the mat. And stepping left foot back, find that down dog. Take your time to arrive, and once you do, let's go for a deep breath in. And a complete breath out. Okay, on the next inhale, we're going to look forward to our hands and roll forward. And as you exhale, bring the knees down. We're making our way down onto our bellies now. So let's draw the knees together. Untuck the toes. Walk the hands about a hand distance forward. Press down into the palms, inhale, rock forward, and we've got a little low plank. Keep the line from your knees to your shoulders as you exhale, bend your elbows and bring yourself all the way down to the mat. Okay, from here, chin is going to go down. Press downward through the tops of the feet. Reach the hands back behind you. 2 options, we can keep the hands out by the sides, Always start to work the hands toward each other, if possible, interlacing the fingers behind the lower back. So either here or here. Whatever variation we're taking, we want to start to reach the hands back toward the heels and then lift them up toward the ceiling. And this will automatically lift the chest and the chin off the mat. Avoid any temptation to start looking forward. Instead, keep your chin in toward your collarbone so the back of the neck stays lengthened. So we're either here or here, making sure that you're breathing deeply. For 3, 2, and 1. Starting to draw your hands back inward and then downward toward your lower back or the floor. Feel the shoulders melt and relax. Release the interlace of the fingers if you were taking it. And take your right cheek down to the mat. And allow everything to rest heavy for a couple of breaths. Okay, so we're working toward our Dhanurasana, elbow pose. We're going to do half variations first, so not going straight there. Bring your left hand underneath your left shoulder, press into it to lift yourself up, and bring your right forearm parallel to the front end of your mat. If sitting up here, if pressing away from the mat, it's quite strong on the lower back and you're feeling you start to niggle, come lower and you can rest your forehead down. Okay, so know that this variation is always there for you if needed. Otherwise, we're drawing in and lifting up. From here, bend the left knee, reach back. Reach the foot toward the hip, or toward the glute, and then press downward through your right elbow and start to reach your left hand back. We're aiming for the outer edge of the left foot. If that's not accessible, that's absolutely fine. Not catching the foot, instead just keeping the reach, so keeping the intention of the shape, drawing inward with the foot, backward with the hand. If you've got a hold of the foot, beautiful. If you have a hold of the foot, just to confuse things a little, we're switching the intention, drawing backward with the foot, forward with the hand. So we're pulling the foot and the hand away from each other, even though they're holding on to each other. And this will help us lift even more. So foot back, hand forward, chest starts to lift, chest forward. Big opening across the shoulders. We want to keep ourselves from leaning out to one side. So keep to center as much as possible. Make sure that left foot isn't leaning out toward the left. Both hips are still grounded, a smile on your face for 3, 2, 1. Start to kick the foot back inward toward the glute. So you can release the hand from the foot without the foot springing back. And then slowly release the left leg, the left hand back down toward the mat. We're going to lower down. Both arms back beside the body, left cheek to the mat. Let the whole body relax. Take a few moments here. And we're making our way up to the other side. So right hand comes down to the mat underneath the right shoulder. Press into it so that you can bring your left forearm parallel to the long end of your mat. Remembering it can be low, forehead resting, or lifted. Draw belly button to lower back. Keep the chest tracking forward. We're going to start to bend the right knee, aiming the right foot up toward the ceiling. So if it's rocking in or out, our hips might not be even. So the foot draws one line upward and then inward toward the glute. Press out of your left shoulder to keep the chest lifted. Reach back with your right hand. If the foot and the hand don't connect, keep drawing the foot in, reaching the hand back, reaching toward each other. If they do connect, make sure that connection is strong, and then try and pull your foot and your hand apart. This drawing apart will help lift the chest, give you a greater stretch on that right shoulder. We have more of an upward lift rather than a downward movement. Chest forward, gaze forward. Filling the space you're creating through the front of your chest, more specifically on your right side. Feel the space you're creating across the front of your right leg, down into the hip flexor and the quad. For 3, 2, 1. If you have connected hand and foot, stop that push away from each other and instead draw foot in so that you can release the hand without the foot springing back. Bring the right hand back down toward the mat, and then we're going to come down just onto the forehead. We're going to go straight for our full Dhanurasana variation. If that is not something that you're wanting to take today, if you're feeling quite niggly through the lower back, you can rest here long on the mat, or you can turn yourself straight over, lying on your back. Otherwise, you can take the Salabhasana variation that we took before, hands down by your side and a little lift, or fingers interlaced behind the lower back. So lots of options, but if you're coming with me, what we're going to do is forehead down, bend the knees. Reach the hands back and catch the outer edges of the feet. So keep your forehead down to start. Notice where your knees are and your feet are in space. Start to work them inward toward each other. This doesn't mean we're bringing the knees together, but we're not letting them collapse outward. So we want to keep the knees hip distance apart, the feet about hip distance apart. Only once we've found those lines do we inhale, and then use the exhale, start to pull the feet away from the hands as much as possible. So we kick the feet toward the back of the mat and then lift them up toward the ceiling. Keep the back of the neck long. Make sure you're not jarring the neck by throwing the head up and back. Using the activity through the feet to open the shoulders, open the chest, open the whole front body for 3, 2, 1. If you've caught your feet, start to allow the feet to rest back inward toward the glutes, and this will lower the chest, lower the forehead down. Once you're down, release your hands from your feet, send your legs long. Send your arms long in front of you. So we're fully lengthened out on the mat, and then all we're going to do from here is flip ourselves over. So we're coming to lie on our back. Arms long, legs long, filling all the space that you've created in the body. Let's take a deep breath in together. And a full exhale. Now keeping the hips grounded where they are, start to walk your feet off your mat to the right, both feet. Walk your hands and your shoulders off the mat to the right. Coming into our banana shape, stretching through the whole left side of the body. Back of the head is heavy. Heels are heavy, hips are heavy, shoulders are heavy. Winding down our practice. And after that active back bend, our bow pose, just letting the heaviness of the body release from the activity of that shape. Okay, coming back through center, working your hands and your feet back, and then we'll go out to the left, lengthening the right side of the body. And then we'll work our way back towards center. Again, working hands and feet as far away from each other as we can. Big inhale. Then use the exhale to hug the knees into the chest and wrap the arms upward toward the legs. Give yourself a nice big squeeze. Let the lower back lengthen out on the mat. And if you feel it natural to want to roll left and right here, please do so. We'll finish off with a nice gentle supine twist to release through the spine. And then come into our Shavasana. So once the lower back feels nice and grounded, reach the arms out long. And allow the knees to melt out toward the right. Let this be soft. We're not actively pressing downward toward the mat. We're just releasing. It doesn't need to look like anything in particular. Make sure the lower back is comfortable. The shoulders are heavy. The head can be facing toward the ceiling, the face can be facing toward the ceiling or facing toward the left. And if your eyes aren't already closed, let's close them down now. And then inhale is going to draw the knees back up to center. And exhale releases them out to the left. Keep it soft. Head is heavy, shoulders are heavy, hips are heavy. Maybe the face turns toward the right, eyes stay closed. And then an inhale turns the face back up toward the ceiling. If it's not already there, draws the knees back in toward the chest. Once again, wrap your arms around your legs, and this time we curl up into a tiny little ball. After all that expansive, big, opening movement, give yourself a little hug, allowing yourself to turn in. To soften down. When you feel ready, releasing arms from legs and starting to extend long on your mat. If your lower back is at all niggly, the bolster underneath the knees is a great option for your Shavasana. Otherwise, extending long, back of the head heavy, arms out loosely by your sides, palms turn to face upward. Acknowledging the space that you've created in your body, in your mind through our practice today. Acknowledging your breath, not just as something that happens to you, but a tool you can use to shift the way you feel, the way you move through your day. And acknowledging yourself entirely in this space, in the present, and the truthfulness of this presence. And allow yourself to remain in this space, absorbing the practice. And I'm going to leave you here resting on your mat this morning, so please stay as long as you can. Thank you for joining me to practice. Namaste.